Good evening and welcome to the show. I'm Chris Hahn. Leland Vittert is off this week. It's safe to say we are in unprecedented political times. We have a former president being investigated by the FBI. That same former president may well be the Republican nominee for the White House in 2024. The political rhetoric is hot and getting hotter. Here's Senator Lindsey Graham from this past weekend.
What happened with Hunter Biden is that the FBI weighed in to make sure a story didn't break for the 2020 election. We now have whistleblowers at the FBI telling Senator Grassley that they were told to slow down and back off Hunter Biden. And I'll say this, if there's a prosecution of Donald Trump for mishandling classified information after the Clinton debacle, which you presided over and did a hell of a good job, there'll be riots in the streets.
Yeah, you know, I'm a simple-minded guy, Senator. I think people ought to be treated the same without regard to political ideology.
Yeah. Justice without regard of political ideology. A noble concept, and one seen far too infrequently in this country. Over my shoulder, here is Lady Justice. Since the 1500s, she's been shown outside courthouses and other government buildings wearing a blindfold. Originally satire, showing justice as blind to the injustices before her. But over the years, it's come to represent impartiality, the idea that justice should be applied without regard to wealth, power, or status. Then you have Lindsey Graham, warning about riots in the street after the National Archives alerted the Justice Department last year that the Trump administration hadn't turned over all of its White House documents at the end of Trump's term. The archives sent a staff memo Wednesday claiming threats have been made against the institution, which is typically seen as nonpartisan. NARA has received messages from the public accusing us of corruption and conspiring against the former president, or congratulating NARA for bringing him down. The acting archivist wrote, "Neither is accurate or welcome." Whether accurate or welcome, there's a bigger point to be made here. Why should hot political language affect the outcome of the Justice Department's investigations? In America, people riot for all kinds of reasons. In sports, there are even violent riots from fans when their teams win. There was the Detroit World Series riot in 1984, and the same city for the Pistons in 1990. In 2010, when the Lakers beat the Celtics in the NBA Finals. The San Francisco Giants in 2014 after defeating the Royals for the title, and of course, 2018 when the Philadelphia Eagles bested the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl. I could go on, but the Eagles didn't just decide to lose because they were worried about their fans setting the city on fire. Shouldn't the same principle apply to the justice system? Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist and senior NewsNation contributor George Will joins me now. George, it's an honor to talk to you tonight. Where are we as a nation where the Justice Department's got to be worried about riots to do their job?
When Lindsey Graham made that warning, he A, spoke the truth, and B, because what he said is true, he should not have said it. Our country is dry kindling right now, and a spark can set it ablaze. I'm not sure how much civil disorder there would be, but when that man in Cincinnati, who wound up dead, attacked the FBI building there, he was one of many. There are people like that all over the country who are angry and armed and incited constantly by this torrent of inflammatory rhetoric. It's I don't think we're quite in 1968 yet, 1968 territory, or 1967 with the riots in Newark, or 1965 with the Watts riot, but we're close enough.
You know, but George, even in the 60s, political leaders didn't stoke the violence, especially major political leaders like Lindsey Graham, who's been in the Senate for decades. I've never seen anything like this before. What do you attribute that to?
The Senate has become, as it legislates less and less, it's become more and more a performative place where people strike poses, issue statements, tweets, one thing and another. Remember Josh Hawley, the Missouri freshman senator from Missouri, on January 6th, 2 hours before the Capitol was stormed, walking across the Capitol Plaza, giving a gesture of encouragement, his clenched fist, to those who were about to storm the Capitol. So let's just put it real politely. We might not have quite as good a class of leaders as we used to have.
Yeah, I mean, the Senate is no longer the cooling saucer of the Republic as the founders intended it to be. That is for sure. One needs to wonder, about, that. And you would think with 6 years terms, they would be very interested in just calming down the rhetoric. But shouldn't justice be applied equally across the board without fear of the consequences that's going to come from it?
I'm not sure that we ought to do this without fear of consequences. We have to take cognizance of the social context in which the law is enforced. And law enforcement always involves a certain area of discretion. In 2016, when Mr. Trump was elected president, 63 million Americans voted for him. America watched him govern for 4 years, and 11 million more people, 74 million Americans, voted for him. That is a brute fact that has to be considered before the government does something as astonishing as having the Justice Department under the control of one party indicting the former president and perhaps future presidential candidate of the other party.
In your opinion, do you think that we're going to get to that point, at least federally? I mean, I know there are things going on in Georgia and other states where the president might get indicted by a state grand jury. But do you think that the Justice Department will actually bring charges against Donald Trump at some point?
Well, the ominous thing here is the very fact of the raid, if we want to call it that, the search of Mar-a-Lago, suggests that the only conceivable rationale for that is to build a case for an indictment, for a charge. I hope not. This country has so many problems and so many threats, foreign and domestic, to throw gasoline on what is already an angry country is reckless.
But don't you think the constant warnings of political violence coming from the right is actually working to encourage that violence?
It might be. And that, again, is all the more reason to back off slowly from the possible event that triggers violence. It just will not do to simply say, no one is above the law must be applied equally in all cases, and then drop the subject. That's not a full, rounded, political, prudent judgment about the contest we're in.
Last question for you, George. If you were advising Mitch McConnell or Kevin McCarthy, what would you tell them to tell their members to try to calm things down in this country?
I'd say turn down the rheostat on your rhetoric. The country is not angry. The country is exhausted. We've had 5-6 years now of constant high decibel rhetoric, and the American people will, I am convinced, reward politicians who understand the public's exhaustion and treat them like adults who need a respite from the furor.
Well, I appreciate your comments as always. George Will, thank you.
Glad to be with you.
Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.